Eventbrite TV show. We have a very, very special guest on with us today, Brayton Bushby. He's one of our coaches. And of course, he's one of our former students. And he is basically an animal on the phone when it comes to reaching out to companies. And he is a very encouraging coach when it comes to this topic as well. He's very passionate about it. Just before we got on, Brayton, you said that everything else is, you didn't say it just this way, but essentially what you're saying is everything else is for naught if you don't push it out to the companies at the end, getting on the phone and getting on LinkedIn so the companies can see it.
Yeah, I it's unfortunate, but I think we all know a lot of people that have ideas. You go to the Thanksgiving dinner table and people have ideas, and then 5 years later they're still talking about those ideas.
Right.
And it drives me crazy. Like you gotta make the calls, you gotta make the effort to get your products into companies, or nothing's gonna happen.
So we're not talking about those today. We're talking about maybe people in our audience that are serious, or our students
Okay.
that are serious. They signed up
Sure.
for coaching, and no, that's a good point. But the people that are like, I'm ready to start calling, and maybe they've made some
Okay.
calls, or there are students. What pitfalls do they fall into as far as a work ethic, expectations? Where's their head at, and where do you get their head at? Where does their head need to be at to accomplish things?
Sure. So I think expectation wise, because calling companies is something that we don't really do often. I mean, maybe you call up your credit card company to fix something, or there's not many instances where we're calling up companies and asking them to do something. So I think a lot of students think it's harder than it is, or they make it to be a bigger thing than it is.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, you're just talking to another individual who has a day job, and you're trying to basically drop off a package. You're like, hey, I got this package, aka your sell sheet, your video. Who's the best desk to drop it off to?
Do you think they're making up in their own mind like all these terrible things, or maybe subconsciously, or actually thinking them? Somebody is going to say, you mentioned, if they have to get no's from all these companies and move forward with the maybes, they have to have somebody saying, I'm not interested in your idea. I don't like your idea, but it's not a right match for us. And maybe they're fear of rejection, fear of people saying no.
I think there's a little bit of that. For me, I think it's kind of a natural progression where you try to get your ideas into companies, and it's taken too long, and you get frustrated with how long it's taking, that you start to put more effort forward. And then you get feedback from companies that, well, we decided to pass on the idea because it's going to be too expensive to make, and we don't think people would buy it at this price. Well, that's really good insight for me to have for any of my products. Now I got to start to take that into account. Another time I was reaching out to companies, and a couple said, we're kind of concerned about the liability of the product. And I thought, liability? There's something unsafe about this product, but companies have product liability insurance. They are constantly concerned about someone suing them for the littlest thing. So you pick up all these little bits of information that make you a stronger inventor, and it comes from the no's. It doesn't necessarily come from the successes. We all want to be successful, and I think you will be, but kind of the path to success is paved with a bunch of no's, and you build from those.
Mm-hmm. But you talk a lot about, and so do I, about work ethic. So, I always say if you had an inventor over here that had, say, okay product, it made sense, and they really pushed it out there to companies. They're licensed way before one of our students over here, and it's just really cool idea, but they're barely pushing it out. And so, do you have to set expectations with your students on how many calls you need to make and that sort of thing quite a bit? Because do they set that bar too low for themselves?
I think they do. Sometimes students will say, like, I reached out to 15 companies, but only one, let me send it in. And I would say that would be a little bit low. But I always like to tell my students, if you aim for every 10 calls that you make, you'll get into one or two, or just expect one submission. That really gets your expectation to working hard and a good work ethic to get your product into enough companies. And some industries are different than others, right? So some industries are really accustomed to receiving ideas, and so they know exactly who to put you with, and so you don't have to make as many calls. And then other industries, which people do license in, but they're just not used to getting the same idea flow as companies. And we kind of saw this in the video that I recorded recently, Andrew. Right when I was calling companies, we did a quick recording. I called up 4 companies, and none of these companies really knew what to do with me. They're kind of like, oh, a new idea. They wanted to see it. They just weren't sure.
what was great is we recorded this on video. He was on his iPhone and he recorded it. It was for a special new training video for our students, and they saw, they saw look on Brayton's face while he's doing the call, and they're like, well, and Brayton's like, very casual. What about here? And he's just like, because it's so natural to him. So that you need to have a volume of experience so that it starts to become natural to you. And I find that
Yeah.
people have a hard time going from amateur, because you're pro when you make a lot of calls. That's when you're pro, if you ask me, to submitting a lot of ideas. And in that case, I think about 16 minutes and you got into 3 or 4 companies. But then you said at the end of the video, guys, I could have easily made, 12 calls and got into none or just one. It
Hmm.
varies. And I think people,
Yeah.
they always want it to work exactly the same, and it just doesn't. But two of
Yeah.
the 3 companies were kind of the same vibe, like, well, and you said basically the same thing, and it worked both times.
Hmm. Yeah, and I would, your point, Andrew, I would really argue it's not about kind of the result you get, like, did you license this product? Do you license every single product? It's about the effort that you're putting forth. Are you doing everything that you need to do in order to give your products a good chance? And I think that there is a certain level of work ethic that's required to get your products licensed, and we really want all our students to have that so they can all have the best chance of licensing their
Do you
product.
have more of a playful nature about it? You're like, I'm gonna get this thing done, but if it doesn't work out just exactly the way I wanted it to, I'm not gonna freak out. I'm gonna try other things and move on to the next company. I'm not gonna go, oh, that was just terrible. Then you walk away when you should have been making 50 more minutes worth of calls. I mean,
I mean, I kind of like almost see myself as like a delivery service man or like a postage man for like UPS. I'm just trying to find the desk in the office that the package goes to, aka my sell sheet or my video. Who in this office takes the packages?
right.
I'm looking for someone in sales or marketing, and that's kind of how I see it. It's almost like an adult version of Where's Waldo? Like,
How,
who's the sales or marketing person that takes sell sheets?
Yeah,
And that's all
okay.
I'm trying to
But
find.
that's a
Yeah.
fun game kind of like way of looking at it. And do you get
Yeah.
really really upset when you're reaching out to companies normally? I'm sure once in a while, but probably not is my guess. You just kind of do it.
No, I don't think there's really any upsetness about it. Not on my end, not
Okay.
on their end. I mean, companies are looking for ideas. I'm looking to get my ideas licensed. It's like peanut butter and jelly.
I think there's a certain yeah, I think there's a certain it's just funny. A certain insecurity that people have and they're I don't know, all these ideas are going around in their head. And the more they do it, and the more they get through what they perceive as a difficult situation, the calls you did weren't difficult. They're like, oh, I don't. They didn't really know where to send you, and you made a suggestion. They're like, okay, yeah. They're like, sure,
I
we can do that.
I think that's why, like, you suggesting to do the recording of the video like really resonated with me. I was like, that's a really good idea, because then students will see like how simple it can really be.
Right.
I just say the same thing on every single
Yeah,
call.
it
I've been
was
saying the
great.
same thing for 4 years. It's really simple. They don't ask you a whole bunch of questions, and as you saw in the video, no one even knew what my product was by the time I submitted my sell sheet. They
Yeah,
didn't ask about the product. They didn't ask
yeah,
about a patent. They didn't
yeah.
ask about
And
any of
that's
that
what
stuff.
these are all things people are thinking out there, or
Yeah,
viewers
it
that
doesn't
they're
come
gonna.
up.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd like to have you back to cover some more stuff on this topic, because Brayton's
Okay,
been talking
let's
to me a
do it.
lot about how the work ethic of the students equals the success, and Stephen and I have always felt very strongly about that. So, and Brayton's great about that with his students. So I want to have you back, Brayton. You good with that?
Absolutely, let's do
Okay.
it.
All right. Cool. So I remind everybody, take care, keep inventing, catch up with you next time. See ya.